Hey, Steve. Yeah, this is really important. I don't know if most Americans recognize just that the decisions being made in Washington today over AI will shape the future of the United States for 100 years or more. And so while we're all kind of we're all focused on all these different headlines, behind the scenes, as you mentioned, there's this war that's being waged on the future of AI. And it's table stakes for the country and for the future of freedom and for the future of our constitutional republic. So Senator Hawley, he's long been a champion of kind of everyday folks. I think Steve, one of the phrases you used was the little people are the hobbits. As a Tolkien fan, I always love that. And those are the folks whose voices are not being heard from in Washington. And Senator Hawley has taken a stand, and he's saying, and with Senator Blumenthal, they put out this piece of legislation that basically says if an AI company uses data that was generated by an American for training their models, then they're going to be held liably accountable. And it's a really interesting thing, and it's one that's being litigated in the courts right now. And so I have to applaud Senator Hawley for stepping up and asserting the role of Congress in an appropriate way, and not leaving these decisions to the courts.
So what is this is more than just monetization. What are they trying? Because folks, remember we beat back the 10-year moratorium into the fact of that no states would have a say so here, or at least to be some sort of regulation, not just a free and total anarchy for a decade, because by then it'll be way, way too late. Every time they move, every meeting they take, they're trying to figure out how to slip this thing. They try to slip it into the NDAA, and the Senate side and the House side it's been beaten back. But you won't know that until you see the final bill. Every time you turn around, they're trying to get this moratorium in there. Why? How does this put that a little bit in check? Because we've killed that a couple of times, but you've got to be always on the alert of what the oligarchs are trying to do.
It's unfortunate that some of our Republican colleagues are continuing to push on this, despite the quite severe repudiation during the big, beautiful bill discussion in the Senate. And, I think the appropriate response here is not to ban states from doing anything for 10 years. If you're going to make the argument that, look, the United States needs to beat China, we need a standard unified approach. It's not that you say there's going to be no rules for the industry and 10 years of just sort of free reign to pick the pockets of the American people. Instead, you need the federal guardrails in place. And I think there's definitely a negotiation and a deal to be had here. So federal preemption could make sense if it were to be accompanied by smart federal policy. And I think Senator Hawley and Senator Blumenthal appear to be trying to do just that. It's kind of like a first shot, an opening salvo in the discussion of what a good deal might look like.
What do you what do you say the possibilities is this can pass? We know that when you brought it to exposure in the big beautiful bill, the 10-year moratorium, Ted Cruz was mocking us that we only had 3 votes against. It was a long night, and then we won 99-1. As soon as you put the searchlight on this, it changes. What about in this situation? What is your recommendation for the legislative strategy? This is the network. You guys run this network to make sure we get the appropriate. Make sure that we get the appropriate laws passed. What say you?
Yes, sir. Our network, it's a bit of a David versus Goliath fight, but we're going to fight the good fight to try to help inform members of Congress on what the technical story is of these technologies and where it's going, and what the appropriate guardrails will be. And, whether or not Senator Hawley and Senator Blumenthal's this legislation will pass, I think that it seems to me, at least right now, to be a bit of a tough road. Because at the heart of the matter is issues of whether or not these companies have what they assert to be this idea of a right to train. And if the companies are going to say, like, look, if we can't acquire data and use that data to train our models, then we're not going to have an AI industry, and China is going to win. And then, of course, on the other hand, you have musicians, you have artists, you have content creators who are going to be and journalists and who are going to be displaced by these capabilities. And so if Senator Hawley, Senator Blumenthal, if the exact piece of legislation, it may or may not pass this Congress, but what it does is it opens the discussion on what an appropriate balance could be and what a consensus view could be. Because I do get concerned when I hear folks like Congressman Guthrie in the House continuing to push on this kind of blanket path for the industry. And we have, Americans out there that are, Americans are losing their job today. I mean, we've already had hundreds of thousands of Americans lose their jobs because of AI in 2025. As I understand it, unemployment among recent college graduates is the highest it's ever been. We need a national discussion on what the right framework should be.